Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to explain to you in this video what's been going on in the Pulse chain and HEX ecosystem, along with PulseX and INC token as well. Prices are a bit down today, but you might have noticed in the mainstream crypto media that HEX on the Ethereum blockchain has gone down and taken about a 50% dip or more in the last couple of days. And that might be the only chart you're seeing, but I'm here to tell you what's really going on in this video so that you don't actually get tricked by some of these mainstream crypto media narratives of, oh, Richard Hart, the founder, is selling the coins, because that's just not true. That's a very false accusation that I saw. But, the community actually got very startled, and this was catalyzed by basically a definitive moment in the history of HEX, spurred off by a tweet from the founder that essentially HEX on Ethereum is more of a meme coin. We can call it HEX Classic, and HEX on the Pulse chain network is quote-unquote the real HEX, all right? Or you can call it the better version of HEX. And this has really been true for a while. People kind of knew it, but the community itself, there wasn't overreaction to the tweet. And really, it's a two-sided coin here. The wording from the founder might have been triggering for a lot of people, but at the same time, it was the people in the ecosystem that sold at the end of the day. I saw some claims from some articles that the founder sold. That's provably not true if you look on chain. So stay till the end of the video, and we're going to clarify what's been happening. Now, if you're new here, what I really want people to understand, if nothing else, is that, people think that we repeat this point all the time. People in the ecosystem think this is obvious, but for new people looking in and you see what's called the EHEX chart, okay? You might be looking at this chart because this is the only chart that a lot of people show you. And you might have seen a really big dip lately, from 1 penny all the way down to 25% of a penny. So 75% dip, pretty much catalyzed by a couple of tweets, all right? But at the end of the day, the people sold this because they got scared. But what a lot of people don't realize is that there are two HEXs, okay? HEX relaunched on Pulse Chain when the Pulse Chain network was created, okay? So I know it sounds like elementary school for a lot of the hexicans and the OG investors, but for a lot of new people, these red candles get eyeballs, and these red candles make people wonder, hey, why did the price go down? You're probably wondering that yourself if you're brand new here. We have two HEXs now. I want to make that very, very clear. There are two versions of HEX. The old one is called EHEX. EHEX lives on the Ethereum blockchain, but part of why Pulse Chain was created was to basically save all the users from insanely high Ethereum gas fees. Right now, if you want to do a swap on Ethereum, it costs $80 in gas. If you want to unstake your HEX, for example, and your HEX stake on Ethereum, it can cost you upwards of over $1,000 to end your stake. So that's part of the reason Pulse Chain was created. And we've got HEX on the Pulse Chain blockchain. Let's call this the real HEX now. Okay, we're going to change the narrative a little bit. This is the better version of HEX. This is the quote unquote real HEX, from the words of the founder. Okay, and that's what's essentially happening is people were ditching the old HEX to go into other coins, it seems, because there's a real version of HEX that's actually worth 6 times as much as the EHEX. Okay, I'll repeat that one last time. HEX on the Pulse Chain network is worth 6 times as much as HEX on the Ethereum network. And this is the newer HEX. Okay, this has a chart that just started when Pulse Chain launched back in May of 2023. You can see this HEX is actually up 2x from the lows, whereas EHEX is obviously down a whole bunch, 99% from its highs. But the real story, okay, for the newbies out there, and then I'll get into my thoughts on the whole EHEX, PHEX thing. The real thing you have to know, if you take nothing else from this video, is there are two HEXs now, and when you're getting into Pulse Chain, use the Pulse Chain bridge at bridge.pulsechain.com. All these links are in my description below. But you need to get your coins onto the Pulse Chain network first, and then trade them over on app.pulsex.com. All right, you click these links, the IPFS link, and it'll open it up. And look, once your money is bridged over from Ethereum to Pulse Chain, you can then buy any HEX that you want. You can buy the real HEX, okay, or you can buy HEX from Ethereum. And this HEX from Ethereum is what people are doing. They're bridging their old EHEX into the Pulse Chain ecosystem so that you can at least trade it as a meme coin, as HEX Classic, some people are calling it, without having to pay $40 or $50 in gas every time you do a trade. But if you want to use HEX the way it was intended, if you want to use HEX to stake it in a long-term ladder like I do, like hundreds of other people are doing right now successfully, PHEX, or otherwise known as just HEX, is what you're going to want to use. So buy this one if you're going to be getting into the ecosystem for the first time as a newbie, unless for whatever reason you want to buy EHEX for potentially its meme coin value, catching a falling knife, or whatever. But that's what people aren't understanding. So for example, when you pull up CoinMarketCap, right, and you read all this stuff on the side, here's why HEX plunged 60%. You open this article and they basically just accused the founder of selling, which is not at all what happened. It was actually the community that was emergency ending all their stakes because they were scared from a tweet from the founder that basically said, look, guys, HEX on Pulse Chain is the real HEX because it's got more utility, because you can actually use it, more liquidity. 6 times higher price, and you can actually end your stakes without paying $1,000. It actually will only cost you, probably less than $1. So that's, again, the whole reason Pulse Chain was created. And I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding something very basic because, look, they're never going to tell you anything nice about HEX, especially in the mainstream coin market cap. They really don't like HEX in the mainstream, all right? And you can see, look at all these people not understanding what's going on, except for this one guy who's actually curious. Look at this tweet over here. HEX, what's the difference between HEX on ETH and HEX on Pulse Chain? I'm confused, okay? We got to realize there's a lot of people out there like that because we all think in the community, in the ecosystem already that it's so obvious that there's EHEX and PHEX. It's actually not obvious, and that's part of what this video is about. HEX on Pulse Chain, there's been a definitive narrative shift in the past couple days where the founder basically said, guys, let's just stop promoting HEX on Ethereum. Move on. Time to move on to HEX on Pulse Chain. And if you want to trade your EHEX, at the very least, bridge it in to the Pulse Chain ecosystem so you can trade it there without any gas fees. Now, what we saw a lot of people doing, which is very unfortunate, is they were emergency ending a lot of their stakes. And when you emergency end your stake in HEX, meaning if you end the stake before it comes due, you have to pay a heavy penalty. And so a lot of these people were rushing to emergency end their stakes, paying heavy penalties just to get out for, pennies on the dollar. And they were also paying a crazy high expensive gas fee over on Ethereum to do so. My strategy is a little bit different, guys. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I'm simply doing nothing at all because when the fork happened, guys, when the fork happened from Pulse Chain forked the code off of Ethereum. So you got a copy of all your ERC20 coins, and now they're called PRC20 coins over on Pulse Chain. That means all your liquid HEX and all your staked HEX were copied over to Pulse Chain. So my whole ladder, although it took a huge hit in Pulse Chain terms, of course I wish this number was where it was 4 or 5 days ago. It is what it is because I have a copy of all my PHEX over here, all right? This is how we're all coping right now. I know this is copium, but look, this is the reason Pulse Chain was created, okay? The reason Pulse Chain was created is so that we have a new fully functioning HEX with the original utility of staking and being able to do the staking, like the trustless yield narrative that this thing was built for, the storing value. And if you look at how PHEX has stored value, it's actually been up a 2x from the bottom from its all-time low since launching on Pulse Chain. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people just got spooked, it seems, out of HEX in general. A lot of people, maybe they didn't understand what was going on, or they just felt like Richard was saying, screw HEX in general. I don't know. But it seems a lot of the money temporarily got scared and it went into other coins. Now, a lot of it did get rotated into PulseX, Pulse, and especially INC, which is holding up surprisingly well considering it's a red day for a lot of coins across the board. INC is the meme coin liquidity incentive coin on Pulse Chain, by the way. But me personally, guys, I'm not doing anything at all. I don't like selling the bottom, number one. So why would I sell? I've got a whole bunch of EHEX, but why would I sell it at the bottom? And number two, why would I emergency end stake? Why would I emergency end my stake and take a huge penalty and pay a lot of gas to do so? A ton of gas fees to earn pennies on the dollar for what could be one day substantial value still. These are both going to have a non-zero value. But the thing is that PHEX, obviously, let's call it just HEX, okay? It's HEX on Pulse Chain. HEX on Pulse Chain has a 6 times higher price today than EHEX. And people can bridge in their EHEX, which is what I'm doing. So I'm fully staked on both chains, and I do have a liquidity position as well. Now, when my EHEX stakes come due, my personal strategy, you guys don't have to do this, definitely don't have to by any means, is that I'm bridging my EHEX into the Pulse Chain ecosystem, and I'm actually bonding it to liquidity over on the PulseX decentralized exchange. On PulseX V2, I'm bonding my EHEX to HEX in the EHEX-HEX pair. And right now I'm at a little bit of impermanent loss, but the fees have offset that a bit. And if this ratio ever climbs back up just a little bit, I'll be back to break even again, maybe even in profit one day. Just know that this is a long-term strategy and a highly risky strategy as well. Now, if you just want to dump all your EHEX, well, assuming you even have any at this point, I don't know if anyone's got any left. People are buying this dip, again, as a meme coin, it seems, HEX Classic. But if you just want to dump it all and you can swap it directly for the real HEX over on Pulse Chain, okay, the real functioning HEX with no gas fees that actually you're able to stake and unstake with very little gas fees. So you can do that. And me as a liquidity provider, I'll be your exit liquidity. If I'm the liquidity provider and you want to dump your EHEX or PHEX, you can do that. But what I do know about liquidity is that the more liquidity is locked in the EHEX-HEX pair on PulseX V2, I'll show you guys that right now. You guys would go here if you wanted to do what I'm doing. This very risky strategy, right? Where you go to pulsex.com, go to the liquidity tab, add liquidity, and you would just pair EHEX to PHEX, and we'd go to V2. All right, make sure you're on V2 for this if you want to do the strategy, because that way you're actually getting the transaction fees. You would add liquidity right here, and let's say I just want to add, $1,800 of HEX and then $1,800 of EHEX on the other side. You connect your wallet and you would just basically park both of those amounts of HEX into the liquidity pool and earn fees from by taking the other side of the trade, basically letting other people trade with your money. That's what liquidity providing is. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, why would the founder say this? Why would the founder say this? If we take a less emotional view of it, right, he was basically stating the obvious. He was stating that, look, guys, you've got 10x more liquidity in HEX on Pulse chain than you have on the Ethereum HEX. You also have actual functionality for the utility of HEX. So HEX staking actually works for the Pulse chain version of HEX. Again, 2 versions, guys. I know it's a simple concept, but some people still don't know it. I'm gonna pick on this guy over here again. Okay, see this guy over here? What's the difference? A lot of people are thinking what he's saying. All right, so let's not ever forget that we just have to say it on repeat. There's one HEX, and there's the old HEX, HEX Classic, and then there's the new HEX on Pulse chain, again with a 6 times higher price. Now, if people are coming to me asking me, how do I get trustless yield? How do I get into HEX staking on Pulse chain? Obviously, I'm going to tell them use the HEX on Pulse chain. Use the real HEX, okay? I think we should all do this going forward. Now, one thing that I'm personally going to be changing the narrative on is even mentioning alternative DEXs on the Ethereum blockchain. For example, the whole HEX community got super angry and salty, and we were outraged, myself included, that Uniswap manually tried to gatekeep HEX. They blocked HEX from the front end of uniswap.org. And they did this deliberately, just to spite us, because HEX is one of the most hated and one of the most loved coins in the entire crypto ecosystem. And as a response to that, myself and a lot of community members, we wanted to go on this campaign saying, well, look, guys, you can go on all these alternative DEXs like CowSwap, like, SushiSwap. I'm not going to do that anymore going forward. Okay, that's the one thing that I'm going to change in my messaging in particular, is that why even bother telling people alternative places to go buy EHEX on Ethereum when really we should just be saying, yo, bridge your EHEX into the Pulse chain blockchain so people can trade on the only real DEX that matters, which is app.pulsex.com. That's app.pulsex.com. And this is the website on pulsex.com, guys. Just for an example here, read this really quick as well. I want you to read the very homepage and just remind people one more time of this strategy. The world's largest yield farm. Let's read this paragraph right here. Every time people swap one coin to another on PulseX, liquidity providers earn fees as a reward. Users can bridge in their ERC20s and pair them with their free PRC20s to provide liquidity and earn fees. This also backs the value of the PRC20s that they got for free. I've been actually talking about this concept for a long time now. If enough people back enough liquidity in the EHEX HEX liquidity pair, and we can actually go watch that over here. Again, this is PulseX. If you go to app.pulsex.com, all these links below, go to the IPFS link, all right? And we go up to the info tab here. We'll click on pools and V2. We have to wait for this to load, but remember, just click on pools over here, okay? Pools and V2, and we can see, look, this is the EHEX HEX liquidity pair. We can see, and there's circle. If you notice very slightly, they have different colored circles. The shinier one is the Pulse chain version of HEX, the real HEX, the better HEX, okay? The gray HEX one is that's the Ethereum HEX, all right? So you can see people have been earning, 276% APR in the past 7 days. That's because everyone's rage dumping their EHEX for some reason. Again, I'm not personally. You're entitled to do whatever you want. I would just hate to sell the bottom and pay a bunch of high gas to emergency in my stake and nuke my bag in the first place. I'm a long-term HEX staker, okay? I'm using HEX personally as it was designed for, which was long-term delayed gratification staking ladder. I know a lot of people still doing that, but some people got shook, and you can see the ratio is way, way different than it just was 5 days ago. One HEX is currently today equal to 6.82 EHEX. So the real HEX is obviously worth more than the original HEX, okay? And for a while, it was sitting at about a 2-to-1 ratio, but the founder's tweets that spooked everybody caused a mass sell-off is basically what happened. And it made that 2-to-1 ratio into a 6 or 7-to-1 ratio. Now we have to ask ourselves this, guys. Is this ratio going to stay here forever, or is it going to slowly climb back up? Because eventually it will find a floor. Because HEX is a mutable code with no off switch, it can't be shut off. All right, so HEX is going to live on blockchains forever, whether it's on Ethereum or Pulse chain. And it's really up to the users at the end of the day if they want to provide the liquidity to back the value. And the more liquidity, long story short, if you don't know about Hart's Law or anything like that, the bigger and thicker this liquidity pair is, the harder it becomes to move the prices around against each other in a ratio too much. And the ratio will tend to become locked at whatever it would be at the time. So let's say the ratio climbs back up to, I don't know, 3-to-1, right? Wishful thinking, let's say we get up to 3 EHEX per 1 PHEX. And a bunch of people put up liquidity in here and it tapers off. We could see a stabilized ratio, kind of like we were seeing, guys, on the ratio originally just 5 days ago. We were seeing the ratio start to stabilize. And for people that don't know, if you're new to cryptocurrency, CoinMarketCap is not the place to go for your information. If you want real on-chain metrics, real data right from the blockchain, go to dexscreener.com, DEX screener.com, all right? And then we pull up the EHEX HEX liquidity pair, okay? This is people bonding their old version of HEX, their HEX Classic, with their new HEX, their real HEX, okay? So now we switch to the price in HEX. We need to switch to the ratio over here. This is a little bit advanced, but this is what real crypto users are doing. And if you're not looking at ratios like this, you could be missing out, right? So we could see the ratio was almost stabilizing at about 0.5-to-1, and it was reverting back to the mean up until a bunch of people got scared and decided to sell an emergency on their stake. Now, I do wish people didn't overreact, but yeah, I can't change how people are. It is what it is. My number on paper went down, right? My portfolio value went down. But the thing is, I got all my HEX stakes for free. I got all my HEX copied over in the fork, and the vast majority of the new HEX that I've been buying has been PHEX anyway. So it's a shame that, it scared people off temporarily from HEX in general, because you can even look at, regular HEX. Okay, you can see that it took a little bit of a dip as well. This is the HEX native to Pulse chain, and even that took a little bit of a dip in the past couple of days, but nowhere near what EHEX did. So I think some people just rage quit the concept of HEX altogether, which again, just gives new people a chance to get in, especially if you like the long-term staking narrative to make a staking ladder. You can really get into HEX on Pulse chain, okay? The Pulse chain native HEX, that's the better HEX. Start with that one. All right, if you're going to start on HEX, start with that one. Treat EHEX as a meme coin. This is the narrative change that everybody's basically coping with. But it gives you a chance to start over, is all I'm saying. It gives you a chance to get in at prices that we had 3 years ago. So it's almost like a complete reset. And, prices have been flatlined on HEX for a few months now. Right? And I really don't see things going down, especially as we see other coins in the ecosystem like PulseChain and PulseX showing so much strength, okay? PulseX is showing a lot of strength, especially from the bottom, especially from the SEC crash down here, guys. We're seeing PLS has essentially done a 6x in price performance from the all-time low if you were buying after everybody got scared by the SEC, okay? 6x is pretty good so far, and things are just getting warmed up. Bitcoin's pumping, and in the future, that could trickle into altcoins like PulseX as well. PulseX is a really good one. I've got plenty of videos about this. This video is mostly about HEX, but let's just look at, how okay things are going. PulseX has done a 7x from all-time lows. And then INC kind of came out of nowhere and surprised everybody with a huge pump lately. Let's just take a look at the INC price. I don't even want to measure this, but it's been a lot. It's up, maybe 14, 15x. So while HEX on Pulse Chain is only up a double from the bottom, everything else is up way more. And I think that's just because a lot of people, maybe they were just buying HEX as if it was another meme coin. It doesn't seem like a lot of people were staking. I'm actually shocked that there was so much liquid EHEX still available on the market for people to sell. Now, there will always be liquid coins on the market for people to sell. But when it comes to HEX, most people use it for the staking system. And if you don't want it for staking, then why would you get it at all? To me, if you're not buying HEX for the staking aspect of it, I don't understand why people get it. A lot of people like it just because you can set it and forget it, earn trustless yield passively over a long period of time, even on a multi-year, multi-cycle time frame. Now, that concept to degens and to short-term, casino-minded people, they don't love that concept. They just want to get in and get out, turn $100 into $10,000, within a couple of months, and then wash their hands and be done with it, right? But the true believers in the whole ecosystem or long-term thinkers, they gravitate towards HEX because they understand delayed gratification. And even though Pulse Chain is only 10 months old, we can see right here, day 304, I still think it's too early to be calling for definitive statements on, yes, we can definitively say that HEX on Pulse Chain is the real HEX. We can. But we can't definitively say that, Pulse and PulseX will outperform HEX over the long run, or that HEX is dead. I've been hearing people say HEX will just never recover ever again, and I don't believe that at all. Now, EHEX might have a hard time. But I do believe both will recover, and they both can recover faster if they're liquidity bonded. But again, this setback, in all honesty, is probably going to take HEX on the Pulse Chain network a bit longer to recover just from, its identity crisis or its perceived, uncertainty around it. And I've always said things too, like, Pulse Chain and PulseX will show strength at times where HEX might not be showing strength, and vice versa. A lot of the coins in this ecosystem will have temporary seasonality, but I don't think HEX on Pulse Chain is going anywhere. I mean, it's been showing resilience, still up a 2x from its low on the Pulse Chain network, and it's only just getting started in its bull run on Pulse Chain. So we know that, whether we like it or not, EHEX cannot be destroyed. It can't be shut off. It's going to have some non-zero value no matter what. But basically, for now, it's achieved meme coin status. All right. If we want to treat this as a meme coin with no utility, well, HEX, even without its utility, will still have a non-zero value. People are still going to trade it. And especially if it's locked to HEX or people just have nostalgia for it. There's also the fact that maybe 5 or 10 years from now, when the Ethereum gas fee situation actually gets fixed, allegedly, that your stakes might actually become useful again. But for the next cycle, at least, HEX on Pulse Chain is going to be the star of the show. If you want to get into HEX on the Pulse Chain ecosystem, again, start with HEX on the Pulse Chain network. Now, one of the reasons the founder was saying things like this is because look at the Ethereum gas fees, and just to prove to you how outrageous they are, look at how much Ethereum gas in total was used on the Ethereum blockchain only on the HEX protocol in the past, since its existence since December 2019. 13,000 Ethereum, otherwise known as $31 million. This is adjusted for the prices at the time, right? $31 million was paid in gas fees for people starting stakes, ending stakes, swapping for HEX, etc. Okay, just in the HEX protocol alone. That $31 million could have been spent just buying HEX on a cheaper blockchain. Right now, I know Pulse Chain only launched 10 months ago. So let's look back from around, May 2023. It seems that about 6 to 10 Ethereum per day have been being spent still on the Ethereum side of HEX. All right. Now, I'm partially responsible for even mentioning that there are DEXs that you could buy HEX on the Ethereum side. We shouldn't even be caring about that. It's time to move on and tell people, look, if you want to buy EHEX, just go buy it on Pulse Chain. Because look, we can see if, let's say we're spending 7 ETH in a day on the EHEX protocol in whatever functions you're doing, 7 times 4, that's $28,000 of wasted ETH gas money that Pulse Chain was specifically designed to save all the users from. All the users on Pulse Chain. The whole reason it exists was so that you could bridge using bridge.pulsechain.com, right? This is the bridge website. Link in description below. If you want to get over and save yourself, even if you don't care about HEX at all, if you want to save yourself from having to pay $50 to swap or $100 to swap, go to bridge.pulsechain.com, click on the IPFS link, okay? Then you very simply take your Ethereum coins, bridge it into Pulse Chain, and guess what? You could take your ETH, bridge it to Pulse, and you'll get 1,000 free PLS to pay for the gas automatically. So it takes care of the gas fee problem. There's a bot sending everybody 1,000 free PLS for gas fees for your first time bridging, okay? Pretty awesome, pretty awesome. And then as soon as you bridge in, you hop over to app.pulsex.com. This is the main DEX, right? And it just looks like basically Uniswap V2. You go to the exchange and you take your Ethereum, right? Your Ethereum that you just bridged in, and you just say, I want to buy HEX. Remember, the real HEX, Pulse Chain HEX. I think that's what's so, devastating for people is that a lot of people, they don't want to completely ruin their EHEX bags. Now, look, my EHEX bag is completely wrecked, but I'm actually saved by the fact that there is a PHEX bag. I guess I'm lucky that, the EHEX bag that I have is still worth 15% of a real HEX, okay? And it might come back one day, which is why I'm not selling it. And again, I don't like selling bottoms. I don't like emergency end staking, so I'm going to keep on doing nothing. And as my EHEX stakes roll out, as they come due, I'm going to be doing just that. I'm going to be bridging in my HEX from the Ethereum network, right? I'll be bridging in the HEX over here. Once it's in my wallet, I go over to the Pulse Chain network, and I could do that whole liquidity thing on V2. Remember, you want to be on V2. You don't have to do that because it's very risky, but look, all these apps are on gorealdefi.com. Okay, if you want a single website, gorealdefi.com, this is the link below that you have to bookmark. You can get to the bridge, right? The bridge, take you right here. All the same websites we've just been talking about. The DEX, the Pulse Chain DEX, okay, PulseX DEX. PulseX is the name of the decentralized exchange, all right? Or you can even stake your HEX right on here by clicking the HEX button over here. This is going to pull up the good old-fashioned staking. You go over to staking right here to stake your HEX. If you're interested, again, you don't have to do any of this at all, but this is what's happening in the HEX Pulse Chain ecosystem. And one more thing I'll say about the real HEX, the HEX on the Pulse Chain network, is that it is a fresher chart. This chart looks a lot better because it only started when Pulse Chain launched. So People are asking why the dump, and part of the reason of why you're asking the question, why was there such a huge dump? Well, basically the community all just got scared. Okay, people that were weak-handed decided to sell and just sell the bottom, I guess, and go into other things because of the declaration of there being a better HEX or a real HEX and an original meme version of HEX, HEX Classic, okay? But the screenshots definitely look better. I will say the screenshots from the new HEX definitely look better with a fresh chart, don't they? And so the mainstream media is not going to show you that. A lot of them are still thinking that when you search for HEX on CoinMarketCap, for example, a lot of people, this is all they do. This is all they know about crypto. Go to DEX Screener if you want to get in front of all the pairs and really educate yourself about how crypto works. I like DEX Screener a lot. I also like GoPulse.com. Just click on all the links in my description, figure it out. You'll be okay. But we see there's one HEX that's got a price of 0.0026 and another one that's got 0.016. Okay, so when the chain was forked, again, one more time, all the coins were forked, everyone's balances, including HEX. But the HEX that's native to Pulse Chain is the one that's actually usable. Like you can actually start and end your stake without paying hundreds of dollars in gas fees, okay? But mainstream media is going to show you only this one. I'm going to show you the full chart history of this. And then, yes, it is bad, right? Like it is down 99%, but they're not going to show you the fact that the chain split, the fact that there is, the log chart also does make things look, a lot of people don't click this log button here. And you have to do that to realize that a lot of people are still not doing so bad. But anyway, they're not going to talk about HEX on Pulse Chain because people can barely understand it. Because people can't understand that, yes, there's a new version. It's kind of like, there was Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, okay? And the forked version, like Ethereum Classic, is almost like HEX Classic. That's kind of a similar way to put things. Ethereum Classic was the original pre-forked Ethereum that still has a non-zero value. People still trade it. People still do stuff with it, but it's just kind of floating by. It doesn't have near the value that Ethereum today has. You could think the same way about HEX. HEX Classic, the original HEX on Ethereum, will always have some price. It'll always probably trail in the footsteps of Pulse Chain HEX, right? But the real HEX on the Pulse Chain network has a 6 times higher price and a lot more optimistic people on it because, again, the utility exists because you can actually do stuff with it, all right? But of course, a lot of mainstream news articles in crypto, they don't like the founder because he's like all flashy and outrageous, especially in the last bull. They want him to be the bad guy, even though the people on the inside know he actually is not, right? He actually wants all of his coins to pump. He's doing a lot for his coins to pump, right? But I think him saying that, basically that there's a better HEX and a worse HEX offended some people because he was like, well, he doesn't want all 5 of his coins to pump. And in a way, guys, yes, it actually will be easier to pump only 4 of these coins. To focus economic energy into 1, 2, 3, and 4 coins will be easier. Now, I'm still a fan of allowing our EHEX bags to go up for the ride by liquidity bonding them to regular HEX. Okay, I'm still a fan of that. But hey, if you want to dump yours, if you haven't already, get it out of your system now. If you want to dump your HEX Classic at the lows, or if you want to emergency unstake, I would never do that, But hey, I guess the time to really do that was like in the first month, I guess. And just because I was still waiting and seeing how things shook out, I just waited. And now at this point, I don't want to sell the lows. I'm going to wait and see my EHEX bag, which is now worth 1/6 of my regular HEX bag. It might rebound one day, but I'm not the type of person that likes to sell the bottom on anything. All right. Hindsight's 2020, but let's think about the future going forward. So I'm happy with, a 1.2x free value, let's say, because I got all these forks copied, or I got all the coins copied, right? And because in EHEX today is worth about 15% of regular HEX on the Pulse chain, I basically got 1.15x my total value for free. Now, unfortunately, the price of both HEXs are down just because everyone's freaking out about, what do we do about HEX in general? I guess they don't understand that, the decision is essentially clear now. And some people ended up, selling their HEX on Pulse chain along with that. Look, it's a bit of a setback. It is a bit of a setback, but we've recovered from insane volatility before. Things like Big Payday and other events, we've recovered from these 80, 90% drops before. And when you look at HEX on Pulse chain, it's not even that bad, right? It's still up from the bottom. It's still kind of just sliding along, moving sideways. Has yet to have its true bull market pump. But hey, I do think things are just getting started in 2024. So look, I'm still calling it a copy. I'm not willing to call it a migration, right? Because I know that EHEX will always survive and just barely linger on, whether it's at a 10-to-1 ratio or a 2-to-1 ratio to its Pulse chain counterpart, HEX on Pulse chain. It's always going to exist because it can't be shut off. So it's still a chain copy, right? I still have all my copies. Again, I'm not nuking them. I'm simply bridging them and doing the liquidity providing play that a lot of us were trying to popularize before the chain split. After the chain split, I didn't really hear anybody else besides myself talking about the whole, pairing your ERC20 with PRC20 to provide liquidity and earn fees. That can still happen, and we could still lock the liquidity ratio in, but I digress. So that's the long and short of what happened. I think the founder was basically looking at these numbers and saying, damn, guys, why are you all still buying HEX on the Ethereum blockchain in general? In fact, for anybody, not just Hexicans, not just if you don't like HEX at all, your coin probably looks something like this too, with millions of dollars of fees associated with the Ethereum fees in general. Aave users, Compound users, all these classic DeFi users, you've probably got similar amounts of fees, being used in your protocol that could just be go to buying the price of your coin up and pumping the price of your coin. $31 million of Ethereum was wasted in gas when it didn't have to be as of May 13th, 2024. Now, it'd be interesting to see since the fork how much ETH was spent, right? But it was probably a couple $1 million. $31 million is the total, right? But since May 13th, it's probably a few $1 million spent in gas fees. That doesn't need to happen. So one more time, what I'm doing, what we can all do, you can dump your EHEX. Go ahead and dump your EHEX. I'll be your exit liquidity, right? You could sell into my liquidity pair. I've already eaten a lot of impermanent loss, but I don't believe we live in a vacuum, and we'll see if things rebound and that impermanent loss is recouped a bit, because I put my liquidity position in at a 2-to-1 ratio, which is kind of my break-even point. If I add more at this low point, however, I do lower my break-even point to about a 3-to-1 or maybe a 4-to-1 ratio. So it's a little bit advanced. If that's all too much for you, don't worry about it. Just know that if you're going to buy HEX to stake, bridge your coins. Okay, by using the bridge button, bridge your coins into Pulse. Use the PulseX decentralized exchange to buy HEX or Pulse Chain or PulseX or whatever else you want. If you want to stake your HEX, go over here and stake it on the Pulse Chain network, not the Ethereum network. Don't shoot yourself in the foot by having to pay, an arm and leg in gas fees, okay? Now, in the future, we've also got protocols like Pool Party, right? Pool Party is HEX staking pools. You can always join a HEX pool to actually save yourself from gas fees on Ethereum or Pulse Chain in the future. A lot of people are even fudding future Pulse. Like, what if Pulse gets too expensive in the future? I'm pretty sure if you buy enough Pulse now, you'll have enough Pulse to unstake your HEX in the future if we have that good problem of Pulse Chain going up 10,000x. But you can also just join a HEX staking pool and actually earn more rewards from the bigger pays better bonus. Look into Pool Party as well. This is hexpool.party. And all the links I mentioned will be in the description below. But if you want to learn more about HEX, learn more about all the options available to you. So Pool Party is another thing that will probably save HEX on both chains one day. One day. It kind of isn't really saving HEX on the Ethereum chain today because people will still have to buy and sell the perpetuals on a DEX that costs $80 to buy and sell. So again, this might be useful, especially in the future of Pulse Chain as well. And for all this volatility that we're experiencing today, I really do believe in 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe 2 or 3 months worth of time, we're all going to forget and move on to the next thing. As with everything in crypto or life in general, it always seems like the most craziest thing because people want to be binary. They want to pick black and white. And there is a definitive useful and not useful HEX. Okay, that's very definitive right now, especially after the founder basically called it. But HEX will always have a non-zero value, okay, or a value as a meme coin. So I'm a big fan of at least bridging it into the Pulse Chain ecosystem so it can be traded freely or very, very cheaply without having to waste all your hard-earned money on swapping one coin for another, which should be the simplest thing ever. But guys, on Ethereum today, it costs $100. And a lot of us thought, myself included, that EIP 4844 was going to lower the gas fees. Turns out all those articles I was reading a couple months ago were wrong. And the most latest on that is that EIP 4844 is only going to really lower the gas fees for our layer 2s. So we're going to have extremely high gas fees going into this massive ETH bull run, making basically everything unusable, just like it was in the last bull cycle. We were all complaining about this last bull cycle. So let's do it right this time. Let's focus our energy on these 4 coins. And if you want to buy EHEX as a meme coin, that's totally fine too. If people want to take up that meme coin, I know you got guys like B-Roots out there probably licking his lips right now, probably catching the falling knife. Go ahead and play with that. Just buy it on PulseX. Do yourself a favor. Why would you want to stay in Ethereum at this point? I'll do a better job of not even mentioning DEXs on the Ethereum blockchain. Why would I even want to tell you guys about how to buy HEX on Ethereum if there's just a better way to do it. So going forward, I will specifically only be mentioning the bridge and PulseX and maybe some other DEXs in the Pulse Chain ecosystem too. But most important of all, if you got nothing else from this video, if you got EHEX, look, I'm not selling the bottom. I'm not emergency unstaking, but one option you could do other than just dump it is you could bridge it in as well, and you could dump it there. Hey, if you're going to bridge it in, you could at least dump it on Pulse Chain if you want to dump it. Or you could liquidity bond it to regular HEX, or you could even liquidity bond it to INC. Wink, wink. That might be an even more advanced strategy. But for all the normies out there that are just coming in that don't have a clue, we've got 2 hexes. Okay, we've got 2 hexes, and that's the difference. HEX was forked onto the Pulse Chain network, started basically with a brand new chart, and with more focused economic energy on these 4 coins, I think the whole community is going to have an easier time pumping all these, especially knowing that they're all heavily locked in liquidity to each other in the yield farms. So if I go over to these yield farms, right, you don't actually see EHEX in any of these yield farms, but look what you see. HEX is locked to Pulse, PulseX is locked to Pulse. Both Pulse and PulseX are locked to INC. That means when one pumps, they all pump. Okay, when one pumps, they all pump. It's Hart's Law. Look into it. I've got previous videos about it. Look, silver lining. One of the silver linings is that the payout per t-shirt per day on the Ethereum side is 60 HEX per payout per t-shirt per day. So that's almost 10 times what you normally get in one day. So you basically got the yield of 10 days in one. Now, that's been happening. The numbers have been high for the last 5 days, but 60, I think, was the record. Okay. Now, again, in this bear market, right? In this bear market, I've primarily been buying the core 3 or 4 coins, right? I've actually been primarily buying HEX, PulseX, and PLS. I haven't really bought any INC at all. I've only been mining this. And I've only actually purchased a tiny bit of HEX from Ethereum. And I actually only bought that when the fake whale Alex tricked everybody that he was going to pump up the price on Ethereum. I only aped like, a couple $100s in there. So I don't feel too wrecked by all this, honestly. I mean, yeah, my number went down in terms of my total net value because I had both before and after. But anybody that's been buying HEX after the fork, I mean, you're probably not as upset as all those people that, bought before the fork and had staking ladders on both sides. And a lot of people that are just upset that their value of the EHEX side went down. Yes, it sucks. I'm not going to pretend like seeing the number go down doesn't suck. But I guess I'm just so seasoned at this point. I'm so masochistic that I'm just used to stuff going down 90% all the time. And the fact that I still got my PHEX bag for free, it's not technically a loss. It's just a coulda, woulda, shoulda, sold everything in EHEX on day 1 for a 1-to-1 ratio. But hindsight's 2020, and it's not like I would have done that anyway because I was, mostly staked at that time. My stakes coming due at that time, sure, I could have swapped them for PHEX and had a little bit more money today. But we never played things perfectly, okay? So you can't beat yourself up for not playing the game exactly perfectly. And if you're angry, right, if you want someone to be angry at, a lot of people are angry at the founder, just know that it's all going to pass, okay? Everything is going to get better in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe a couple months. Might actually take a few months to shake out of this one. But we're going to be here. We're staking 5, 10, 15 years. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, I'm not going anywhere. So for the new people coming in, you're wondering, why are there 2 hexes? The chain split. The chain split from Ethereum. Pulse Chain forked off. And guess what, guys? Guess what? You can actually go to pulsecoinlist.com and you can actually press the start button up here and post your address, copy paste your public address here, and see how much free money you have waiting for you on the Pulse Chain network. So go over here, link below, right? Go to apps, start, and you can see that all your coins got copied. Yes, HEX got copied, but so did your Aave, so did your CRO, so did your Pepe, so did your PDAI. You're definitely going to want to check on your DAI if you had any DAI. Look into that one. And, you've got all the PWBTC. A forked version, a copied version of a wrapped Bitcoin is still worth like $100 today. I haven't checked the price. It's about $100, but still, it's not zero. So that's why you're seeing the price go down over here, but you're not seeing the whole ecosystem totally wrecked, okay? Yes, it was a big hit, especially for the EHEX believers, right? The EHEX believers. And I'm still a believer, guys. I'm still a believer. I'll ride it all the way to zero. I don't think it's going to zero. I understand that it's going to have some value as a meme coin utility, okay? That's going to be its only utility for a couple of years. But hey, 5, 10 years from now, maybe that utility comes back when Ethereum finally gets its act together. In the meantime, Pulse Chain is our shining city on the hill. It's our safe haven, okay? So I highly recommend bridging in, whether you're bridging in your EHEX, okay? Bridging your value in. So at least if you want to dump it, guys, get cheaper fees for it, okay? Get cheaper fees and just be aware that there's a parallel universe in crypto. There's a parallel universe that treats you way better than Ethereum does. Because look today, guys, look today. Look at the gas tracker for a swap. It is $71. That's not fair. You know how much it costs on Pulse Chain? A penny, maybe 2 pennies. It's never like more than 2 pennies. Okay. NFTs, $120. Bridging, $22. It's probably even more than that. I've seen the Pulse Chain bridge cost $80 at times. And that's going in, right? Not going out, but going from Ethereum into Pulse Chain because you're paying the gas fee on Ethereum. Ethereum's totally wrecked in terms of its usability. So if you want to actually use your crypto, or if you want to buy stuff with more potential, if you want to buy stuff like Pulse Chain, PulseX, yes, I actually still think HEX has a lot more potential to pump. Right now, I'm thinking that HEX on Pulse Chain has a lot more potential than HEX on Ethereum, but I'm still not selling my HEX Classic just because I want to see what happens. All right. I don't care. I want to see what happens. But again, for new guys coming in, highly, highly recommend that you buy the real HEX, the better HEX with more utility, more liquidity, better price performance, and maybe also consider looking into some stuff like INC, PulseX. INC just had a massive run. PulseX hasn't even broke its sacrifice rate yet. And then find out about the many other crazy meme coins we've got out there or other DeFi protocols we've got built. Go down the rabbit hole, guys. It all starts with you, number one, bridging in. Okay, you bridge in your ETH. If you're a first-time user, you get 1,000 free Pulse. You go to the DEX. If you're a first-time user, get some of the core coins in the ecosystem if you want. They're all right here. All the apps are right here. Okay, all the apps are right here. Now, so don't fall for the FUD. Don't fall for the random FUD articles of Richard Hart sold. I'm just going to show you how stupid crypto is right here. This is how dumb the mainstream is. All right, this is how dumb they are. Richard Hart, the founder, has been a polarizing figure, drawing both ardent supporters and fierce critics. Can you guess which one I am? The allegation is that Hart is selling his holdings. I love when people say this because it's crypto, guys. All you got to do is point to the blockchain where everything is recorded and say, this is where Mr. Hart sold, and it hasn't happened yet. Okay, it'd be very easy to point that out. In reality, what happened, community got spooked. Me and a couple other people, we're still holding strong on both chains, still buying more heavily into HEX on Pulse Chain, okay? But the narrative shift has got people a little disillusioned. We do have to be more clear on the narrative that the HEX that you're seeing on the Ethereum blockchain, guys, the HEX that you're seeing on the Ethereum blockchain, this one right here, look at my screen, look at this one right here. This is the old HEX. We've got a new one that's better in almost every way, other than maybe memeable utility in the, I don't know. HEX on Pulse Chain is better. All right, let's just say it. Let's just admit it. And let's also realize that, look, the fully diluted market cap is $9.7 billion. But what does CoinMarketCap do? They gatekeep it because they don't want you to know. They manually put market cap at $0, and they make up all kinds of reasons why. For now, it's that we don't have enough exchanges because we use DEXs. So wait till we get a couple more exchange listings. If this 9.7 billion was actually reported, we would actually be the top 17. We'd be number 17 on the homepage, exposed to 250 million more eyeballs. But normies coming in, you might be watching, you might be wondering why the dump. Just know all the gatekeeping going on, know what's really going on. And if you're going to start in HEX, okay, if you want to start with your long-term staking ladder, it's really designed to be a long-term store of value. Start with the one that's native to Pulse Chain. Start with the real HEX on the Pulse Chain network. All right, hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you on the next video.